You're clinging to a rain-soaked fortress wall on the coast of Frisia, and every choice that brought you here feels catastrophically stupid. The ancient stonework crumbles beneath your grip like stale bread, and far below, a cluster of furious Frankish soldiers debate whether to fill you with arrows or simply let gravity handle the execution. Here's a tale of how a terrified shepherd became a feared raider, survived impossible odds, and learned that honor sometimes costs everything. If stories like this pull you in, consider subscribing to Lasting Legacy. We tell stories that echo through time just like this one. Make your choice, sheep tender, Ragnar Ironside bellows from the longship rocking in the harbor below. Either prove you deserve a place among my crew, or start swimming back to the Northlands. Your former existence of peacefully tending flocks suddenly seems brilliantly attractive, at least until you recall how those animals devoured your favorite shirt when you weren't watching. The warriors aboard are wagering their rations on whether you'll survive the next 30 seconds, which does wonders for your confidence. He's about as useful as a wooden blade, someone yells from the deck. You'd take offense if you weren't so occupied with not plummeting to your death. Your village chieftain's words haunt you now, how the gods supposedly selected you for this raiding expedition. Amusing how they always seem to choose the scrawniest farmer's sons instead of the chieftain's own well-fed children. The golden chalice glimmers above you, probably wondering how its tranquil monastery existence transformed into an impromptu Norse recruitment trial. Well, if you're going to die anyway, you might as well make it memorable. Your next move had better be brilliant because unlike those farming games you used to play, this one doesn't offer second chances. Turns out the Norsemen don't exactly believe in gentle training programs. You managed to steal that chalice and only caught one arrow in the thigh doing it, but now arrives the genuine test, proving you belong on this vessel of professionally violent maniacs. Your first lesson? Everything on a longship wants you dead. The ropes, the oars, the waves, and especially that suspiciously grinning veteran showing you the basics. Row harder, sheep lover, Ragnar roars as you strain against an oar that fights you more viciously than your old ram during shearing season. Your muscles scream like they're being tortured by angry spirits. This isn't your grandmother's butter churning, though you've met his grandmother and she could probably outrow this entire crew. The vessel lurches violently and your breakfast decides it prefers life in the ocean. Your new shipmates find your seasickness absolutely hilarious. The crew divides between he'll be dead by sunset and he'll be dead by dawn. Only Bjorn the Lucky wagered on your survival, though you later discover he always bets against popular opinion, ever since that incident where everyone assumed he'd die from an axe splitting his skull. I want enough silver to buy my own ship, he grins, tapping the metal plate covering his head wound. Look, he's feeding the fish again. They've established a betting pool on how many times you'll vomit before reaching the Danish shores. The current record stands at 17 and you're determined to shatter it. At least the fish are well fed. You're cultivating your own little underwater following. Your first admirers, someone jokes. If only your fans didn't reek of mackerel. Training isn't any better. That's your skull, not your sword arm, your instructor Halfdan growls after you nearly decapitate yourself during blade practice. I've seen better footwork from a three-legged dog. The bruises are forming patterns across your body, you could probably navigate by them at this point. Old Astrid, the cruise healer, has two solutions for everything. Either coat it with fermented fish paste or wait until it falls off. You're never entirely sure if she means the bandage or the actual limb. Still preferable to farming though. At least here when something tries to kill you, it's honest about its intentions. The surprising part? You're actually improving. Your sword doesn't feel like a lead weight anymore and you've finally figured out which end of the axe is the dangerous one. Progress. Even Ragnar notices. Well, farm boy, he grunts after you manage to block his strike without tumbling overboard. Maybe you won't die immediately in your first real battle. Coming from him, that's practically a love declaration. Your first genuine raid arrives faster than expected, like most near-death experiences in Norse life. The target is a coastal settlement that probably wasn't expecting its peaceful fishing morning to include longships. Remember, Ragnar announces, we're here to plunder, not to admire the architecture. And try not to die, the paperwork is terrible. Turns out Vikings have administrative issues too, just with more axes involved. The landing beach looks about as welcoming as a wolf's dental appointment. Local defenders are already forming ranks and you're fairly certain your legs shouldn't be trembling this violently. The veteran beside you, Eric the Scarred, creative naming isn't a Norse strength, notices your terror. First raid nerves, he grins. Just imagine they're angry sheep. Easy for him to say. Your sheep never carried spears. Everything dissolves into chaos faster than your sister's wedding after too much mead. You're swinging your blade like your life depends on it because it absolutely does, when you spot a defender attempting to flank Ragnar. Without thinking, you tackle the man into a conveniently positioned pile of fish. "Nice move, farm boy," Ragnar shouts. "Though maybe next time less fish, more sword." After that day you earn a new status, the Viking who saved Ragnar's back. It only mostly smells like herring. Not exactly a saga-worthy title, but it's a beginning. Turns out raiding is the simple part of Norse life. Winter in Scandinavia? That's the genuine enemy. The cold bites harder than a starving wolf and your beard has more icicles than hair. Eric demonstrates proper Viking winterization by coating his beard in seal fat. "Keeps the icicles out," he proudly declares, right before a seagull mistakes his beard for lunch and dive bombs his face. "And apparently attracts birds," he adds, spitting out feathers. "Stop complaining," he continues, watching you chip frozen seawater off the ship's side while trying to maintain his dignity. "This is nothing. Last winter was so cold we had to thaw our words over the fire before anyone could hear them." The crew's solution to everything is either mead or those horrifically fermented fish that smell like death took a vacation in a barrel. "Eat up," Bjorn grins, offering you something that might have been fish in its past life. Builds character. You're fairly sure it's building something, but character isn't your first guess. Between the mysterious healing concoctions and old Astrid's walk-it-off approach to medicine, you're starting to think Norse healthcare consists entirely of not dying until your body figures out what to do. Your first command arrives during a raid that's going about as well as a blind giant in a pottery workshop. The storm struck just as you reached the Frankish coast because of course it did. Half the ships are scattered, Ragnar's unconscious from a wave-thrown barrel, and suddenly everyone's looking at you like you're supposed to know what to do. "Well, farm boy," Eric shouts over the wind. "You've been watching Ragnar. What's the plan?" "Wonderful. Your first leadership opportunity, and it's during what feels like the end of the world's wet rehearsal. You'd really prefer to start with something easier, like organizing mead hall seating arrangements. Time for some creative problem solving. You order the ships to use the storm's fury instead of fighting it, riding the massive waves into the harbor like nature's own battering ram. "Either we'll make a spectacular entrance," you yell, "or we'll give the fish something to tell their children about." The crew's laughter is half terror, half approval, the perfect Viking emotional blend. The storm delivers you over the harbor's defensive chains and suddenly you're not just the farm boy anymore. You're the madman who turns certain death into victory. In Viking terms, that's the best kind of promotion. 20 years pass like a hangover after a successful raid, quickly, painfully, and with lots of interesting scars to show for it. You've earned your own ship, a crew that mostly follows orders, and a reputation that doesn't involve the word farm boy anymore. They call you Storm Rider now, though Eric still jokes it should be Fish Tackler after that first raid. You're leading your own expedition when you spot a familiar sight. A young recruit dangling from a wall, looking about as confident as a chicken in a fox's den. The crew's betting on whether he'll fall, and suddenly you're remembering your own first raid. "Give him a chance," you tell the veterans. Some grumble, you distinctly hear "going soft," and probably another "sheep hugger." But the kid makes it, though his landing looks like a drunk goose trying to ice skate. "Welcome to the Viking life," you say, helping him up. First lesson, the ground is harder than it looks. The crew laughs, but you notice them shifting subtly closer, protective. They might act tough, but Vikings take care of their own, even the clumsy ones who smell suspiciously like sheep. That's when you spot the glint of arrowheads in the morning sun. The monastery wasn't as undefended as your scouts reported. You shove the recruit aside just as the first volley hits. The arrow that finds your chest would probably hurt more if you weren't so annoyed at the irony. 20 years of surviving everything the world threw at you, only to be done in by an act of kindness. The gods have a twisted sense of humor. Your last moments are exactly what you'd expect from a Viking life. Chaotic, painful, and somehow still funny. The recruit you saved is trying to help, though his idea of first aid looks more like panic chicken dancing. "Stop fussing," you tell him. "I've had worse." You haven't actually, but dying men get to lie a little. The sky darkens. Either Thor is throwing a farewell party or that head wound is worse than you thought. Through the haze of pain, you see them. The Valkyries gliding down from the storm clouds on horses made of lightning and mist. They're somehow both beautiful and terrifying, just like the Viking life you chose. You think about your journey from terrified shepherd to Viking commander, all those near-deaths and actual deaths, the raids, the storms, the absolutely terrible fermented fish. You know what really sucks about living as a Viking? You mutter to no one in particular. The dying part is actually the easiest bit. The last thing you see is the young recruit picking up your sword, holding it like he's afraid it might bite just like you did once upon a time. The Valkyries approach, their weapons gleaming with otherworldly light. Time for your final raid, this one to Odin's Great Hall. Not bad for a farm boy who once thought the scariest thing in life was angry sheep. If tales like this one stir something in you, subscribe to Lasting Legacy for more stories of lives lived boldly and lessons learned the hard way.